time now to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. And joining me via Skype is lawyer and social development advocate Jide Ologun. Good morning and thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning, Veronica. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right, let's head straight to the papers now. And I begin with the Daily Times. Covid-19, Madagascar cure will pass stringent testing processes. PTF, that's the Presidential Task Force speaking there. It also cautions against sharing recycling of face masks, asks states to align their policies with those of the federal government. Let's quickly move on now to the national economy. COVID-19's impact on oil sector to severely affect Nigerian banks. The Zenith CEO speaking there. Cushion effects of COVID-19 on real sector. Manufacturers Association of Nigeria tells the federal government. And we move on to the Leadership newspaper. Federal government looks inward, injects 100 billion naira into research for COVID-19 cure, says vaccine expected next year. PSN laments dumping of local drugs for Madagascar herbal remedy. All right, we'll move now to the News Direct. COVID-19, CBN ready to support homegrown vaccine with 100 billion naira in Emefiele. And finally, on the front page of the Daily Trust, 471 die in Yobe in 3 weeks. 90% of victims not coronavirus patients. State government. Residents give different accounts. Federal government's team in Bauchi, Katsina, Jigawa over mass deaths. All right, let's look at the story on the front page of the Leadership newspaper, talking about the federal government looking inward, set or ready to inject 100 billion naira into research for COVID-19 cure. I wonder how this comes to you, because before now, a lot of Nigerians have been talking about we looking inward for homegrown solutions to fighting COVID-19. You would recall the Oni of Ife also coming out to talk about herbal remedy before we even heard about the Madagascar's herbal remedy cure. How does this come to you at this point?
It is a very wonderful development for me. Like late Chinua Achebe said, that we did not first hear about culture from the Europeans. So if we have local solutions, why can't we develop those local solutions? I've asked a simple question. Even if we are going to bring in vaccines from China, from wherever, from Japan, wherever, those were produced locally over there and exported to us. Why don't we also develop the capacity here and export to them? And don't forget that these inventions, they have economic values also. For example, if eventually we bring in the COVID-19 syrup from Madagascar, definitely, even if the first batch is free, subsequently it may not be free. And that what that will do to Madagascar is to encourage them develop other potentials that they have. So I'm so glad that the federal government is looking inward. And this morning, I was listening to Professor Agbedaunsi of OA University. You know, we have many researchers in Nigeria. We have research institutes in Nigeria. So why don't we develop capacity? And that is what COVID-19 has come to teach us. And so that we also can stand tall. If you look at China, for example, despite the fact that COVID-19, started from Wuhan in China, China is standing strong, even supporting other countries, because from the past, that society has developed a vibrant economy. So we should also be able to do the same in Nigeria. And you talk about what are the consequences that may follow COVID-19, talking about food scarcity. You know that Nigeria is of Africa. We get serious with our diversification and invest so much in the agriculture. And that's already going on. Look at the mid-belt of the country, the food basket. That security for the farmers. When the farmers are very, do we have storage facilities? Do we have electricity to move it to the next level of industrial level, so that we can create a food bank that will support us? I'm glad that we have this. And you look also at the fact that it's a heavy agro revolution going on in Cross Rivers.
All right. All right. Let me quickly interrupt your line of thoughts at this point. You said you listened to the professor from the Obafemi Awolowo University, which I spoke to earlier, and he raised a concern which has to do with a dearth in available structures in terms of equipment for research. And so if these monies are coming or available to researchers at this point, how would they go about carrying out their research when there is a dearth in available equipment or resources for them to do what they need to do?
Great question. We all read, or at least heard, that when this COVID-19 broke out, China built an hospital in less than 30 days. Let me be conservative in my expression. In less than 30 days to handle that situation. So when you have resources, it is a sort of power to you. Whatever equipment you want to put together, even in the presence of COVID-19, you can get countries that will assemble them. Didn't we bring medical doctors from China to come and help us set up molecular laboratories around the country? Even though Nigerians were saying they shouldn't come in because of the infection. So there are several possibilities. I mean, we have the refinery. Are we now saying that if the United States of America takes over our refineries in Nigeria, that they will not function? A country that has effectively managed 135 refineries functioning. So where there is a will, there is a way. So if we now add the recovered Abacha asset, the recovered Abacha loop, 100 billion, we give them to those who will implement. I mean, in a little while, we are on the right side of directive on the global platform. Very important, and we must not miss the opportunity. If we deploy the money and give those who respond again, that will amount to failure. But I know that project management value chain have to work out and achieve the goal.
Now, another aspect I'd like for you to touch on is if Nigerians would embrace any homegrown solutions like perhaps herbal drugs or any other vaccine or drug that might be developed if we can cash in on this opportunity. You would recall that in 2015, there were monies released for the development of a particular drug for Ebola, but that drug wasn't popular, and even some pharmacists said that they didn't even know about it. There are concerns with regards to this aspect as well.
Brilliant question. You see, there's what we call brand management. How has Madagascar succeeded in drawing the attention of the world to what they develop? That takes us to the marketing level. And let me tell you now, Mark, that the Nigeria we are talking about, many Nigerians, even those in the National Assembly in high places, they depend on herbal medications. We have them in our midst already. You go and see the mechanic and the Nigerians. Many of them attend to this. So if you develop these medications, package them very well, communicate them, then find the most strategic market entry. But that is for marketers. We will embrace it. This is a time of emergency. And let me ask a question. Have we not embraced the local made nose and mouth mask? We have. Who could have said 7 years ago that a time will come when we'll be able to use local fabric? So you see, the resources around you are to help you solve your problem. And some of us are saying that we have more than enough solutions in Nigeria to solve our problems as we collaborate with the global community. And we have oil at the refineries too.
All right, let's leave the conversation now because it seems that there is a technical challenge. Thank you so much, Barrister Jide Olugun, for speaking with us. It's time to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. Joining me via Skype is lawyer and social development advocate Jide Olugun. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's head straight to the papers now, and we begin with the Daily Times. COVID-19, a Madagascar cure will pass stringent testing processes. Presidential task force speaking there. And it also cautions against sharing, recycling of face masks, asks states to align their policies with those of federal government. Pharmacists kick against the importation of Madagascar herbal remedy. Let's move now to the front page of the national economy. COVID-19's impact on oil sector to severely affect Nigerian banks. The Zenith CEO speaking there. And then we move on now to the leadership newspaper. Federal government looks inward, injects 100 billion naira into research for COVID-19 cure, says vaccine expected next year. PSN laments dumping of local drugs for Madagascar herbal remedy. PTF once again sharing face masks, charges states to align with national guidelines, asks children to keep away from grandparents. And now we'll move to the news direct. COVID-19, CBN ready to support homegrown vaccine with 100 billion naira. Emefiele, the governor of the CBN, speaking there. And now we move to the Daily Trust. 471 die in Yobe in 3 weeks. 90% of victims not coronavirus patients. State government residents give different accounts. Federal government's team in Bauchi, Katsina, Jigawa over mass deaths. And finally, on the front page of the blueprint, confusion over Gambari's appointment as Buhari's COS, that's the Chief of Staff, may be unveiled at FEC today. Ilori in suspense awaits official confirmation. I am yet to be briefed, says President's media aide. All right, let's turn to the front page of the Daily Trust, talking about the deaths of 471 persons in Yobe in 3 weeks, and the state government saying that about 90% of these victims are not coronavirus patients. First, it was in Kano State, and we're beginning to see a recurring strange deaths across some states in the north. How much of a concern is this to you?
It's quite worrisome, and you recall that when it started in Kano, there were reports that they were not connected to COVID-19, but eventually the state had to agree that some of the deaths were connected to COVID-19. But then, even if we claim that they are not COVID-19 related, I think I picked some of the excuses given, talking about high blood pressure and other things. And I can assure you that as long as the federal government of Nigeria, with their well-wisher, allow the insurgency, the operations of the bandits to continue in the country, people are going to be suffering different kinds of health hazards, because you can imagine the level of anxiety with which people live in that region. Because if you look at the operational base of the insurgents, we refer to it as the Bay region. The B stands for Borno State, the A for Adamawa State, and the Y for Yobe State, before you now start talking about what they're experiencing in Katsina and some other parts of the northern part of the country. So we need to really look inward and realize that health is crucial. So whether the deaths are related to COVID-19 or not, the fact that we are losing human beings, and this will not speak well for us in terms of trying to categorize us as a developing country or a developed country, because you have to look at your life expectancy. So we must be concerned about the health of the citizens of Nigeria. And that takes us back to my reference point in the Constitution, that the security and the welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. So, and I hope that this will also ginger us to enhance the capabilities of the health sector in this nation, because some of these deaths probably would have been prevented if the victims had access to vibrant health facilities. So it's a really worrisome development, and my heart goes in condolence to the states that have been affected so far, and we pray.
All right, before we look at solutions, perhaps what the state government should be doing and perhaps the government to do. I'd like to take you up on a word you used while you were addressing my first question. You said that the government allowed issues of banditry and perhaps the insurgency we see in the north. But we have seen efforts being made by government to address these issues. How is that allowing this to thrive in such areas?
My expression was in code, but I'll make reference to what Chad did recently. The Chadian president led the troop that bombarded Boko Haram and sent them packing from Chad. I expect that my nation will do that also. I make reference to what Ghana did when headsmen were also causing rampage in Ghana. The Ghanaian government said, no, you cannot operate here, and they were sent out. And some of us who have the time may carry our studies as far as Mali and see how they dealt with banditry. So I use that purposely in line with the government purpose mandate in Section 14 of the Nigerian Constitution, 1999, as amended, that says that security and the welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. How has the government handled the Shiites movement in Nigeria? How did they handle the Nnamdi Kanu movement? How did they send Kanu out of this country? You know, all the crocodile dance and everything. So I have a strong confidence in the capacity of my president, who was a military head of state and a general, so to say. And so that is why I am particularly disturbed. So, and I know that when the government is ready to carry out a task, you cannot stop the government. The government is the most powerful force, and that is why we all submit by virtue of electoral democracy to a group of persons that we administer the country, and the MDAs are there to give the support. So I appreciate all the promises, all the efforts, but then if we still have this level of poverty in the country, if we still have this level of uncertainties, then we can do more. And of course, in project management, you don't hire people for excuses. You hire them for performance. So there are goals that must be attained. And the promise to the nation is that this nation will be secured, this nation will be prosperous, and we are all waiting for that manifestation. And we hope that someday we look back and celebrate the first 90 days of absence of banditry, absence of insurgency, absence of herdsmen killings, and so I mean, we all look forward to it. These are governance issues, and that prompted my comment.
All right. Obviously, the government has a whole lot on its table it has to deal with at this point. We see that the federal government's team is in some of the states in the north, talking about in Bauchi, Katsina, Jigawa, over this mass deaths. What would you expect them to do at this point to address this issue head on?
I believe they are trying, but then, like we have said in the past, the wise man said that it never hurt to be prepared. Perhaps if we had vibrant health sectors, we could have been able to manage some of these cases. And this is the time to begin to build these structures. And like I said earlier, we can still partner under the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, Agenda 2030. Nations can partner. How did China handle their own medical case? How has Germany been able to contain it? And if you look at Germany, Germany has health facilities that can even accommodate other people coming from other nations. So we need to learn from all this. How did Dubai create a health town? We need to look at all these things. And now that we cannot rush abroad for treatment again, it is the time to develop local capacity. It will amaze you that Nightingale, the revered nurse,
yes,
the facility she started is the facility that handled the Prime Minister of UK during this coronavirus infection that the man had. So we need to develop sustainable structures that we take care of livelihood, that we take care of lives, and we identify the basic amenities that we need in education sector, health sector, infrastructure, And again, find a way of promoting our wealth generation. We need prosperity in this nation. If the people in our oil and gas sector are mismanaging, you fire them. If they are there and we are in poverty, then there is likely to be a conspiracy somewhere. So a great government should not be comfortable with poverty. And we hope that we get to that level of seeing these cases as cases of emergency.
You would recall that there was an Abuja declaration where about 15% of budgetary allocation is supposed to be made to the health sector, and a lot of countries African countries have been unable to meet up with this as a result of debt burden and all of that. Where does Nigeria fall with regards to this, especially not being able to meet up with this requirement?
It's simply a matter of prioritization. Before the advent
all right, our guest.
Hello?
All right, we can hear you.
Yes, I was saying that before the advent of this COVID-19, we were talking about spending 37 billion naira to renovate the National Assembly. It's a matter of prioritization. We just got around $11 million back from the US from the Abacha loot. We recovered almost the same amount from Switzerland recently. And so even if we are borrowing, what do we use the money for? Is it for recurrent expenditure or to build structures? Despite the attack of COVID-19 on China, China is still a strong nation. In fact, we have not even started discussing the political stature of China. China operates what is called meritocracy. You see, that nation is strong, and Nigeria has the capacity to be stronger. We are just now going back to discussing the Ajakuta steel rolling mill. We need to get serious with our resources. So, on answering that question, if health is important to us, we will devote enough budgetary allocation to health, if it is education, and if it is insurgency we think should swallow our money, we will deploy our resources to insurgency, and we get the result. Because whatever you sow, you reap.
All right, Barrister Jide Ologun, thank you so much for speaking with us.